everyone, welcome back to Feather Stitch House. My name's Rebecca and each week on this channel I upload videos about embroidery and textile art to help you get creative. We're well into September now, and so we are going to finish off our September panel today. We've been working on a piece in shades of yellows and golds to celebrate harvest time and the idea of gathering in crops after a hard year of work and getting fields ready for replanting, ready for a harvest to come. You can see all of the videos in this series on the Winging It 2024 playlist, and I will link that at the end of the video, so stay tuned for that. We're going to be doing some embroidery around the idea of seed stitch, and we're also going to be adding some text to our panel today. So we're going to be using letter stamps and printing ink on little scraps of fabric, and we'll also be doing a bit of bead work. So that's the kind of resources you'll need to gather together if you want to stitch along. So gather all your bits and pieces and let's get stitching.
Okay, this is where we left off last week. Thanks so much for all the love for the seeds video last week. It was surprising, I have to say. We've just launched on TikTok and I posted the video of stitching the whipped back stitch stems and it went viral, and I couldn't quite believe what was happening. So to date it's had 110,000 views. If you haven't seen us on TikTok, there is a link in the description below so you can go and check us out. There are links down there to all of the places that you can find us on the internet, so do have a browse. Yeah, it took me by surprise. So I think clearly there's a bit of an appetite for pure embroidery, and I think this whole panel seems to have been very popular. So embroidery and slow stitch, I'm getting the message, folks, that you want some more of that kind of thing, so let's go for it. We've got a couple of spaces that need some attention. I think we've got this area up here and we've got some space behind these petals and around in this top corner, and we've got a band down here. I think although there is some stitch in here, I think this could do with something else as well. So let me show you what I've got. I've pulled out all my linen threads. I thought we could just play with these because they're so textural, and love the colours, so thought they would be good to use. I've also got a couple of strips of natural linen. This, you'll know, comes up all the time in my sewing. I just love it, and it's so lovely to stitch on and it takes dye really well. So I've got just a few offcuts of that, and I've got my trusty stamp set and some brown printing ink. I thought, as we've followed some song titles for the names of the videos this month, we could use some song lyrics on this panel, and so that's why I've got the strips of linen. So I'm thinking we might be able to get some song lyrics down here, maybe, possibly up here as well. We're going to start with just some embroidery, and what I want to do is carry on the idea of seeds. So these are seeds that are growing, that have dried out. I thought it might add another texture. We've got some seed stitch down here, so I wanted to carry on with this idea in these empty spaces and use some other stitches that could be seeds. So I'm going to work on this area first. You could, if you wanted to, put this in a hoop. I'm not going to worry too much. What I am going to do though is just fold back the sunflower petals from that space and just pin them out of the way. So hopefully that will just keep them safe and save them from getting damaged. What should we start with? Quite like this. I haven't used this colour. So this is one of my linen threads. This is from Studio Flax. They specialise in linen threads and yarns. I will wind this onto a peg. I don't really like, I know a lot of my threads are on the card bobbins, but I don't really like them because they put kinks and creases. So I find pegs are much better because there's no hard edges, so it just rolls round. I don't really like using things off the skein. I just find it difficult. So I've got here a chenille needle. Now these are, I don't know what size this is, it came actually with the stuff that I got from Studio Flax. These have very big eyes, they're quite thick but they have a very sharp point, and if you've been around for a while you'll know I'm not at all a needle snob. I just think whatever needle works for you, go for it. But there are occasions where your choice of needle really helps. So if we're doing bullion knots or cast on stitch, a milliner's needle really helps because the eye is the same width as the shaft of the needle, and so the needle pulls through the wrapped thread really easily. If you are doing whipped stitches or lace stitches, then a tapestry needle or a blunter needle works really well because it saves you piercing the thread. For linen threads or thicker threads, chenille needles are really useful because they're so chunky. They're basically going to puncture a hole in the fabric that will allow the thread to pass through really easily. They're also really good for metallic threads. They reduce wear on the thread because the hole that's made is big enough for the thread to pass through without too much friction. So this is quite a chunky one. As a general rule, what you want to try and do is match the thickness of your needle to the thickness of the thread. So I could probably go a size or two down with this needle, but I know that it's going to make it really easy for me to pull my thread through the fabric. So that's what I'm going to use. I'm just going to move those threads out of the way, and I thought first of all let's have a play with granitos. So granitos, the name of the stitch actually means grain or seed, so let's bring the camera in nice and close. And they're really easy, so they're just straight stitches but they look really cute. Let me just show you. Here we go, this is a bit of a spoiler for my stitch alphabet video in a couple of months time. So this is my G page and these are granitos. So they're little stitches that look like grains or seeds. They remind me of pearl barley and they're quite textured. I don't know whether I can show you. You can see they're slightly raised off the surface, so they work really nicely to add texture. So we're going to do them in shades of browns and yellows. Super easy, nothing to worry about here. So I've brought my thread through. You can see that hole that the needle has made. It's going to work a treat. And I'm going to come down maybe half a centimetre and go back through the fabric, so it's just like I'm doing a running stitch or a straight stitch, like that. So we put our first stitch in and then I'm going to come up again through exactly the same hole. Like that. Just trying to avoid the knot on the back. So I don't want to pull too tight, but I want it to sit flat. And I'm going to go back in the hole at the bottom again, but I'm going to use my thumb here to help me, because what I want to do is make that next stitch sit alongside the first stitch on the right hand side. So I'm just going to put my thumbnail in there and ease that thread through until it's sitting alongside, like that. So I've just got two straight stitches sitting next to each other, and now I'm going to come up in the same hole again and this time I want my stitch to line up on the left hand side. So I'm going to go back down the hole at the bottom and just use my nail to ease that thread into place like that. And now if you want to, you can do it again. So we're going to come up at the hole at the top and we're going to go down at the hole at the bottom and ease the stitch over to the right hand side, and then once more up at the top in at the bottom, and we're easing round to the left like that, and there's my little granito. So I'm going to fill this space with lots of little granitos. I'm not going to put them too close together because I don't want to totally obscure the fabric underneath. It's really important with these that you don't pull too tight because otherwise you'll end up with very puckered fabric. So I've started by going over to the left. That's just simply because that's where the thread seemed to naturally want to go. So listen to your thread, pay attention to where it's heading. Now I'm going to do these quite randomly, but if you wanted to, you could do something similar to what we've done down here with the seed stitch. So we drew a box, seed stitched inside it in a way that overlapped other fabric, so we're essentially creating an extra field here. So you could, if you wanted to, do something similar with granitos. I'll see how I go, maybe that would be a nice thing to do. Okay, I've put in my granitos. I've used lots of different shades of browns and golds. I'm loving the effect it's had on that corner. So I thought we would do some other seed style stitches, and just got a little bit of thread that was left over from doing that. So we could put granitos everywhere, but I thought that wouldn't be particularly interesting for you to watch. So what I'm going to do over here, let's pin back my sunflower petals again. I thought we could do some seeds on this fabric here. Wonder if that's easy enough for you to see, hopefully. Okay, so what we're going to do is a little fly stitch with a tail. So this is another one that looks like seeds. So if I do one, we've done lots of fly stitch before, but I'm going to do them as seed stitch in a sort of seed stitch style. Gosh, that's hard to say. So we come up on the left, we hop over to the right, leaving a little space between where the thread comes out and where it's going back in, and then I'm going to rock my needle down a little way so it comes up in between those 2 points and a little bit further down. I want to make sure my needle comes up inside the loop of thread that I've just made, so when I pull, that loop gets caught on the working thread and forms a little V, and then I add a straight stitch to anchor that V in place. So what I'm trying to do is have these going in lots of different directions, just like we did with seed stitch back in week 1. So seed stitch is essentially running stitch in lots of different directions, and this time we're doing fly stitches. So I'm trying to keep them quite small. The thread is quite thick though, so there's a limit to how small I can make them. We just want these to look like seeds that are drifting off in the breeze. And just like with the granitos, I'm leaving these quite widely spaced because I'm going to come in with some different colours. So I hope everyone's okay. We've been sorting out our office space. I don't know if you follow on Instagram, you might have seen my story. So it's been quite a busy old week. We've done lots and lots of work in the house over the last year or so, and our office has become something of a dumping ground, and can't remember the last time I actually worked in there because it's been so unpleasant to work in. There's just been junk and boxes and lots of the stuff we keep stored for shows and things like that. That's all just been piled up in there to the point where we couldn't really get through the door properly, and we thought we needed a massive clear out. So we have been packing boxes and getting rid of bits of furniture that we don't need anymore, and it's been quite hard work. And when we took the desks out, we just wanted to clear the room down, work out what we needed, give the walls a coat of paint. So we haven't changed the colour, we've just given it a touch-up coat, and it's just been so cathartic to get rid of the trappings of a life that we don't live anymore, and just clear out junk. It feels like shedding a skin. It's felt a little bit like ploughing fields ready to sow new seed. So it's been interesting to be doing this at the time of year when farmers are clearing fields and getting rid of all the stubble left from harvesting crops and preparing to plant something new. So now that I'm working on Feather Stitch House full time, it's really important for me, for my sort of productivity, and for me to be thinking in the right way about the business, that I've got a space that feels professional and that is calm. I don't cope very well working in chaos and mess. I find, I don't know whether you're the same, that the state of the room that I'm in really affects my ability to focus and concentrate, and I've just found it impossible to work in there just because there's so much rubbish. So it's been good to do a proper clear out and be quite ruthless, and I suppose metaphorically clear the stubble to make way for something new. So it's been very hard work, but we're nearly there. And the next thing is my daughter. Her room has not been decorated since she was 3 years old, and she just turned 13. She's ready for a more grown-up space. So she's kind of inspired us because she had a massive clear out over the summer and sorted out toys that she no longer wants or needs, and we've been doing trips backwards and forwards to charity shops to donate things. that are perfectly good but need rehoming now. So it's been a bit of a summer of sort of clearing out, really, and I don't think I realised how sort of weighed down by it all I felt. Now that all that has gone, I feel already like I'm thinking a lot more clearly, and there just feels like more space, which is funny because all the stuff that was in the office is now in other rooms in the house, so it's actually still chaotic, but feels like progress. And yeah, I'd imagine, I don't know many farmers, but I'd imagine this time of year gives a really good feeling. So you've gathered in your harvest, and that moment where you clear all your fields of stubble and sort of put the fertiliser in and prepare it for what's next. I can imagine that being a really lovely feeling. I wonder if you've been doing something similar. So we've been doing a physical clear out, and I suppose it's put me in mind of doing a sort of emotional and mental clear out as well, clearing some space in my mind. So I've been doing quite a lot of project finishing as well, working on things that have been sitting waiting to be finished for a long time. I think all of these things take up headspace for me and make it hard for me to focus on the next thing. And it's got me thinking about next year and the fact that I want fewer things on the boil at the same time. I think I talked a couple of weeks ago about my sister not really being able to understand why I've got so many things on the go, because she's a one project at a time kind of person, and I kind of dip in and out of things, even though I think my natural tendency is to be a one project at a time person. But I have about 11 things on the go at the moment, and it means that I can't find headspace to be creative. And so I think one of my goals, hopefully before the end of the year, is to catch up with some of the projects that I'm working on where I'm behind, and actually get some things completed and clear the decks a little bit so that I can start 2025 with a bit of a clear desk. There's always something wonderful, isn't there, about clearing your desk and getting ready for the next phase. So that's what I'm up to at the moment. So hopefully you get the idea with my fly stitches. I'm going to put a few more in, maybe bring in some of this woollier orangey thread and fill in that space, and then we'll come back and do a third seed. Right, so I've put my fly stitch seeds in, so they're gonna peek through as the angle changes and the sunflower petals move around. So the last one I wanted to do is a pistol stitch, so I thought that might be fun to put in a section down here, just overlapping these two boxes ever so slightly. So for a pistol stitch, we're basically going to do a French knot. So I brought my thread through, holding it towards myself, sitting the needle on the top, and then I'm going to wrap over the top maybe 4 times. And then normally for a French knot we would go down just away from where the thread had come up, but for a pistol stitch we're going to take the thread a little bit further away, and then we follow the same process. So I'm going to pull that thread until the wraps sit on the surface of the fabric and then pull my needle through. So the French knot forms at the end of a little stick. So I'll show you that again. So thread through, hold the thread towards myself, wrap a few times, and then take my thread down a little distance away. Keep tension on that working thread and pull through, and it's hidden a bit by the tufts, but by the frayed edge, but there's that little pistol stitch. So it's just a French knot on the end of a stick, nothing really challenging about it, and I'm just going to put a few of those in. So the number of wraps will determine the size of your knot. I think if you go above 4, they do start misbehaving a little bit, so keep that in mind. This is going to just add a little bit of texture, but I always think these look like dandelion clock seeds. You can make some of the stalks longer if you want to. Once again, just having them going off in lots of different directions. So I'm stitching pistol stitches, but I'm doing it in sort of seed stitch style. So I'm going to put a section of those in, and then we'll come back and use our stamps. Okay, so that's my pistol stitch section, and I think I'm going to leave it there until I've got my stamped words on, and then I'll decide whether I need to add anything else. So what I'm thinking is that I'm going to put a strip across here like that, so it will cut through the seed stitch and the pistol stitch and this section of striped fabric here, and maybe a small piece up here, but I haven't decided yet. So I think let's cut a strip. I don't want it to be too thick. Grabbing a little bit of scrap paper just so that I don't stain my mat. So I'm just going to press that a little bit because it's a little bit lumpy. And I thought I could put in a line from the song Fields of Gold, which is what kind of inspired this panel. So I've got my ink pad here, and could just put Fields of Gold, but I actually like the line "You'll remember me when the west wind moves." I don't know how much of that will get on. So Y, let's go lowercase now, O, U, and then I like this set because it's got some punctuation, but has it got an apostrophe? It hasn't. It's got a little dash. Let's use that. You'll, we need 2 L's. So just like normal, I like to sort of get a bit of a colour blend going on. So I'm dabbing in and out of the darker colours here, so I get a little bit of variation. I quite like it. Got an R. I think we'll just get remember me. You'll remember me. You'll remember me. I'm just going to trim that back a little bit because I think let's make it a little bit narrower. I'm just going to fray that off a little bit, just pulling out some of the edge fibres from the weave. Just make it look a little bit more distressed and weathered. I can bring my panel back in. Let's get these out of the way. Okay, let's see if we can get this to fit. Might cover up all my pistol stitches if I'm not careful. Right, I think I'm going to go with that. So before I change my mind, I'm just going to pop a pin in each one. Okay, right, I'm going to stitch these down. I'm just going to use my invisible baste. I think I've got a little bit of leftover thread from last week, so let's get that going. I just want a small needle. Oh, that reminds me, I got a comment last time asking about sharps needles that I refer to often, and could I show you what I mean? So these are the needles I mean. I use Millwood. This is a mixed size of needles, 5 to 10. I also use John James needles, which are excellent needles, really good quality. So these are Millwood sharps. They are fairly short, so if I put my finger next to it you can see fairly short, different sizes. The eye is quite small, so it's better for things like patchwork and working with a single strand. But that's the needles that I mean. I've got quite a selection of Millwood needles, so I've got Millwood embroidery needles as well. They have longer eyes and sharp points, and straw needles too. So I've just restocked needles, but you can see which ones I use most. These are nearly all gone, so yeah, that's the needles that I'm referring to, if you're not sure ever. So let me just show you my invisible baste, and then I'll do this off camera, and then we'll add one more detail. So I'm going to come up on the back, so basically doing running stitch, but we're going to do tiny running stitches on the front. So I've brought my needle through, I'm going just a couple of fibres of the fabric along and going back down, and that puts in a tiny stitch that you can barely see, and then I do my long stitch on the back. So come through, tiny stitch and back down, and I'm just going to add those on. Because I don't need to make a feature of the stitching. You could put running stitch. You could do this however you want to, really. If you want to make a feature of the stitches of this, go for it. It could look really nice, but I'm not going to. You don't have to be totally precise with an invisible base because you really can't see it very well at all. So very subtle, quick way of adding detail. So I'll put those on and then I'll come back and we'll finish this. Okay, we all knew where it was going, didn't we? So I've pulled out some beads from my collection and I thought it might be nice to just scatter some beads around this panel, just echoing the seeds idea. So I've got various kind of gold coloured beads, and then I've got, I don't think I'll use these, but I've got these sort of kind of wheels, and there's also some little, I don't know what they're like little starfish, but it's these that I was mostly interested in, the sort of frosted old gold, can't get the lid off. And I like these because they've got different tones, so there's some that are a bit more purpley, a bit coppery, some are a bit bluish, and I quite like those. And then I've got some dark brown, I think the colour of these is called root beer. Then I've got some of these sort of golden brown and darker brown, and then some mid brown beads. So I'm just going to scatter some of those around. I've got a single strand of just normal embroidery thread. Let's start with some golds. I'm hoping this needle will work for all of the beads. I ought to tip some out, really, it'll make it a lot easier. I won't make you sit and watch me sewing on a million beads, so I'll stitch a few and then I'll skip to the end. I should also say that I am going to put my binding on this before the end of this video, and I'm probably going to do that off camera. I have done it several times in several videos, so what I'll do, if you're not sure about how to attach the binding in the way that we've been doing it during this project, I will link a video where I take you through that process at the top of the screen, so that'll explain how to go about doing that if you're new here and you haven't seen me do it before. I'm just going for some clusters here and put them in a few places. So there we go, here's our finished panel for September. Cannot tell you how delighted I am with this one. Got my little bead sprays, so I've put some up in the corner there and then some down there and then up the side as well. We've got our granitos that we've put in and our fly stitch seeds, and then our little pistol stitches down at the bottom and the seed stitch that we did in week 1. And I just think it's come together really nicely. So I've put my binding on, added my little month marker, and that's us done. So I really hope you've enjoyed this one. It's not a colour I use very often, but I think it's worked really nicely for September with harvest time and all of the fields that surround us all being harvested. So if you've enjoyed this project and you want more inspiration like this, do give this video a like, and why not hit the subscribe button. I do upload videos every week, and I've got something really good planned for October, so we will be starting that in a couple of weeks. I'm going to do something slightly different next week. We've finished our September panel, but it is a 5-week month, so do tune in next week to see what we're going to add to our Winging It collection as we're going through this year. Can't wait to see your versions. There's some amazing things coming up in the Facebook group and on Instagram, so you can join our private Facebook group. There's a link in the description below. If you're sharing on Instagram, use hashtag FSHWingingIt24, and that way all our panels are grouped together and we'll be able to compare notes and see what each other has done. And please do tag me at Feather Stitch House, and then I am guaranteed to see your version of the September panel, and I'll be able to like it and comment and maybe share it to my stories as well. So thanks so much for watching, and yeah, have a great week finishing off your panel, adding your granitos and your other seeds and beads, and I will see you next week. Thanks so much for watching. See you soon. Bye.